Hello and welcome to the second episode of Magic the Judging, where we teach you to be a better judge. It's Tuesday, the 14th February, which is Valentine's Day, certainly over here in England. I assume it's a worldwide celebration of love and all that shenanigans. But I don't know. If you don't have Valentine's Day today, let me know. Of course, for all you single people out there, please enjoy this very special day, known to you only as Tuesday. Apologies to everyone who's just been sitting on the stream and listening to me babble to myself before I started recording. It's cathartic. Just by being there, you've helped me get into the mental state I need to be in to do this stream. Let's switch the logo off, and there I am. Whoa! Still got all the board games. Lots of people commented about the board games last week. Yes, quite a gamer. Sorry about that. No, I love games. I do love all sorts of games, and right now I'm working for a games company, so yeah, it's got to be nice. But we're not here to talk about me or Valentine's Day or love. We're here for combat. Combat is what we want to talk about. Before I get on to this week's topic, I've got a couple of things I want to say from last week. In all the excitement of streaming to you wonderful people, I forgot a couple of thanks that I wanted to give out. I wanted to say thanks to Charlotte Sable for kicking rules.wizards.com into gear, or at least leading the project to do that. I wanted to thank people who helped me come up with the examples I had for state-based actions last week. Tim Pinder, who was on the Great British national team, just gone. He helped me with the Emperor Crocodile example. Simon Johnston reminded me that Caress of Phyrexia is actually a card that exists and does stuff like that. Kim Warren and Gareth Tanner have been fantastic cheerleaders for me. Look at the camera. I don't look down here. Terrible presenting methodology. Anyway, Kim, Gareth, they've been fantastic cheerleaders for me, advertising this stream on Facebook, on Twitter, on DCI Judge L. Hello to anybody who's coming just because they've just got the Daily Digest about an hour ago and thought something interesting might be happening. And thanks to Brett Wright as well, who has written in with a question that's kind of about the combat phase, so we'll come to it later, and it's kind of about state-based actions, so it's a nice tie-in to last week. If you haven't seen last week's episode, it's still available. I'll keep all of these streamed episodes available right up until I run out of storage space on Ustream. I have no idea when that'll happen because I have no idea how much storage space you get. But anyway, I also like to have a big shout out for Michael Chamberlain. He knows why. I'm going to be totally cryptic and just say, hi Michael, love you. And finally, a little bit about the upcoming schedule. So in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be at Grand Prix Madrid. So on the 28th of February, that's in 2 weeks' time, the Tuesday night stream will just be me reeling off stuff that happened in Madrid. I might be talking about situations that happened in the judging. I might be talking about how much I enjoyed Spain. I don't really know. It's just going to be me reeling off stuff like that. So next week, I'm going to go for Two-Headed Giant as a topic. So I'd love it, absolutely love it, if you would send in any Two-Headed Giant questions you have. When I say send in, if you're a UK judge, then send me a private message on the UK Magic Judge forums. If you're not, I'm Paul Smithanator on Twitter. I should probably find out a way to type that in so you can see it here. That'd be fantastic, like overlay thing. So at Paul Smithanator, PaulSmithEnator. So you can tweet stuff at me. I'd like to do like a kind of a mailbag stream the week after Madrid, where I just go over stuff that you've asked me to go over. So I've got a little bit of homework for you with that in mind. If you are interested in becoming a judge or leveling up as a judge, what I'd like you to do is take a practice test. Go to judge.wizards.com and either, I don't know, if you're interested in doing it, take the Rules Advisor test. If you just want to do a quick few questions, take the easy practice test. If you're already a level 1, you're looking to go level 2, you're looking to go even higher, take a hard practice test. Do something like that. What I want you to do is I want you to focus on one question that you got wrong. Look at the explanation in the answer as to what the correct answer for that question should have been. Find the one question from your whole test that you find the most confusing and tweet the rule number to me. Give me the number of the rule, the reference in the comprehensive rule book, for the rule that you found most confusing on your practice test. And I'll put something together on it. Cool. So that's the future out of the way. Let's get straight back to the present, where I'm going to talk to you about the combat phase. Turns out there's a lot of stuff that happens in the combat phase. If I don't get through everything I want to this week, which is mainly how you deal with attacking and blocking restrictions and how you deal with combat damage, then there will be a part 2 to this stream at some point in the future. I'm likely to revisit combat damage anyway. It's a popular topic. It's a good one. But I'm just going to keep going through here, and if I hit the 45-minute mark and I still look like the end is nowhere near in sight, I will just call that a part 2 and stop. So let's get started. I want to point out a fantastic resource that I want to thank Brian Schenk for this one, because he kind of reminded me that it existed and kind of told me, because I didn't know that this has been updated at all. Hopefully you're seeing a lovely Magic the Gathering logo with a picture on it. Oh, what is that card? I should know what that card is. Someone in the chat is going to tell me what card that is. This, however, is a PDF called the Basic Rulebook. It's not the comprehensive rulebook, it's the basic rulebook. It's a far more lightweight version of the rules that you can actually expect to read from beginning to end. Here it starts: your journey has begun. You are a planeswalker. And so on. Object of the game: it's a strategy game played by 2 more players. Each of whom has a customized deck of cards. It's basically, it's can I say comprehensive rules light? Does that make sense? It's a basic rulebook. You should be able to read it from beginning to end. If you have somebody, you know of somebody who's kind of interested in learning the rules, you don't want to point them at the comprehensive rules. It's an awful thing to try and just flat out read. Point them at the basic rulebook. Everything's in here that you need to get started with. And I'm going to start talking about the combat phase from here. I'll just scroll through the rest of the thing. There's a nice content section here to help me. We got basics about mana, parts of a card, card types and game zones. We got the building blocks, like how you make mana, how you use that mana to cast spells, play abilities, how you attack and block. Well, might be going back there in a minute. How to build your own deck, what the golden rule of Magic is, which I'm sure you all know what the golden rule of Magic is. Golden rule of Magic: the cards override the rules. That's it, basically. And then how you play a game, like get a deck, get a friend, start the game, parts a turn, and so on. This is honestly a good resource of a basic overview of Magic rules, which people find hard to do because you know more than the basics, and it's very easy to throw stuff in when you're trying to explain things that are totally irrelevant to the concept you're trying to explain. But you can't help throwing them in anyway because you want to show off what you know, and it gets kind of awkward. Let's get to... See this lovely explanation of the stack here? What happens if I've got a lightning bolt and I respond with giant growth? This is what the stack looks like. It actually looks like a stack. It's amazing. I love it. What if the giant growth were cast first? Loving this. But here, attacking and blocking. Just going to read a little bit out to you. The primary way to win the game is to attack with your creatures. A creature that's attacking your opponent isn't blocked. It deals damage equal to its power to him or her, and it doesn't take that many hits to drop your opponent all the way from 20 life to 0. No, it doesn't. And any of you who have ever played an aggro deck definitely know that already. The middle of each turn is the combat phase. The turn structure is in another part of this book. We don't care about that right now. In the middle, there's a combat phase. You choose which of your creatures will attack. You choose who or what they will attack, because you can choose your opponent or your opponent's planeswalkers. You can't directly attack creatures. Now again, if you've been playing Magic for any length of time, you know this. The basics are aimed at people who might be coming in from other games where you can do that. For instance, the World of Warcraft trading card game actually has combat work that way. So it's nice to spell out, no, you can't do this. You can attack players, you can attack planeswalkers. That's it. That's what you can attack. You tap the attacking creatures, they all attack at the same time. You can attack with a creature only if it's untapped and only if it was on the battlefield under your control when the turn began. This is the rule that's colloquially referred to as summoning sickness. You have summoning sickness if you've only just played the creature that turn, or if you've only just gained control of the creature that turn. And of course, haste is the exception to that. You can attack through summoning sickness if you have haste. Okay. There's that golden rule I was talking about. The cards, they override the rules. Your opponent chooses which of his or her creatures will block. Tapped creatures can't be declared as blockers. For blocking, it doesn't matter how long the creature has been on the battlefield. Summoning Sickness, that doesn't apply here. It's not a thing. Each creature can only block one attacker, but multiple blockers can gang up on a single attacking creature. And if that happens, the attacking player orders the blockers to show which is first in line for damage, which is second, and so on. Creatures don't have to block. Now, one of the reasons that I'm reading this section out and making you go through this basic rulebook slowly is that this is a relatively new concept. It was one of the M10 combat rules changes. And I'm convinced that there are people out there that have been playing Magic for a long time before M10 that haven't actually fully got to grips with the M10 rules changes. And yet here they are, right here. The attacking player orders the blockers to show which is first in line for damage. You can't really get it out simpler than that. After blockers are chosen, combat damage is assigned and then dealt. We'll come back to that distinction in a moment. It's quite important when you actually come to rules quizzes. So an attacking creature that isn't blocked, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. If it is blocked, it deals damage to the blocking creatures. If one of your attacking creatures was blocked by multiple creatures, you decide how to divide its combat damage among them. Now, you might think that if you're gang blocked, you don't have any choice about how damage gets dealt to the blocking creatures. You do have choice. You do have less choice than you did years ago, because you must assign at least enough damage to the first blocking creature in line to destroy it, before you can assign damage to the next one in line, and so on. And your blocking creature deals damage to the attacker, and if damage is dealt to your opponent, they lose life. If you hit planeswalkers, they lose loyalty. If a creature takes damage over the course of a single turn that's equal to its toughness, then who knows what happens if a creature takes damage equal to its toughness. Oh yeah, nothing happens until the state-based actions kick in. Nice tie-in to last week there, like it. Just quickly check the chat. And Story Circle, yes. There we go. Story Circle was the card. Thank you very much. Cookie for you. Turn the page to see an example of combat. Ding! Here's the page. I love how it says turn the page and I'm looking at it as a PDF online. Scroll the page doesn't quite have the same ring to it. So, when you declare attackers, you go these three. I'm just going to attack these three. Done. That's what an attack looks like. When you assign blockers, you have to put the blockers in front of the appropriate things. And then all the combat damage happens at the same time. Okay, what I'm going to try and do now, having taken you through what the basic rule books have to say about the combat phase, I'm going to show you an example of the combat phase. Now, the reason I say I'm going to try and do this is because I'm kind of trying to re-show an excerpt of a stream from the weekend. There was some awesome live coverage of the Pro Tour Dark Ascension tournament all over the weekend that was held in Honolulu, in Hawaii. I'm going to show you an excerpt of Paulo Vitor Dama da Rosa playing against Jelga Vigasma in the quarterfinals. And I'm just going to sit back and let the stream play out for a bit, then I'm going to come over and talk over it. So for now, just enjoy this live coverage of Paulo and Jelga.
Ready to rock and roll? Go and get another Nexus. Go and get a backup Wolf Run.
So he puts 9 in front of the...
Double block Thron and triple block the Titan.
Double block Thron, triple block the Titan. Hopefully you're hearing Jelga in your surround sound home cinema as we are in our headphones.
Sure.
Remember, killing that Phantasmal image will have an additional effect on all the tokens that are involved in combat because they'll all lose a +1/+1 bonus. Should it come to that.
Good man Gary on Cover It Live in the UK, staying up late for this. Good man.
Okay.
I tell you what, St. JW, just for you, This is a one-time only offer. Yes, I will buy you a coffee when you get to work tomorrow.
Regenerates throwing the last troll. Pumps his Primeval Titan to make sure that all those tokens die.
Does Paolo have 23 damage? Ready to rock and roll?
Hello. Did that work? Did that work? Somebody in the chat is talking about Saint JW, so yes, brilliant. I know you could hear Reach Hagen at least. Fantastic. We have an example there of how the combat phase works, and there's quite a lot going on here. So I'm going to step back over a few pictures. So I think we've got some still shots of what was going on in that. Yeah, check out that coffee deal. Was Rich true to his word? Okay, so in this video, as apart from seeing that Paolo Vitor Dama da Rosa does enjoy moving his permanents around a lot, what happened during this combat phase is we got two creatures declared as attackers. I can tell they were declared as attackers because they're tapped. Of course, if they had vigilance or something, they wouldn't need to tap. Oh, Kim missed the combat due to an ad. Did it not? Does the ad overwrite part of the stream? I assumed that when the ad turned off, you picked right back up like where you were. You were just kind of 20 seconds off the stream or something. Okay. Well, anyway, I've got the still pictures. We'll go through it. So you've got. Maybe I just need. Maybe I need to get some kind of control over when the ads play. That'd be fantastic. Probably costs money. Let's carry on. So in this picture, you can see PBDDR, for short, has got the Primeval Titan and Thran the Last Troll attacking, and Yelga has assigned his blocks. And this is a very common way of showing how you've assigned blocks. You actually move the cards or the cardboard that's representing your permanents into distinct sets so that you can see there's 3 tokens over this side that are blocking the Primeval Titan, and there's a token and a Phantasmal Image blocking the Thran the Last Troll here. Then, as we said, the attacker chooses the blocking order. It feels weird to do this, reach over the table and go, here you go, I'm going to attack, I'm going to assign damage in this order. What Paolo is indicating here is that he's going to first assign damage to the Phantasmal Image and then assign damage to the token. Of course, after that's happened, the attacker, because he's the active player, will get priority to do stuff. And he does. So the tap mana in this shot is supposed to show that there's some abilities being activated. The middle bunch of mana, there's 5 lands tapped there. It's a Kessig Wolf run, red, green, and 2. So he's pumped something for +2 power. And I believe it's a mountain and forest near his right hand to show that he's regenerating Thran. And then damage gets assigned and dealt kind of all in one go. And the damage assignment is almost so automatic that you never hear anybody actually do it. It's just assumed that damage is assigned, like I do lethal to this guy and the rest carries over to the next guy and the rest carries over to the next guy. So it might be news to you that this isn't actually the way it necessarily has to work. But we'll come to that. I'm also going to come back to part of this example because I believe there's a mistake here. I'm going to put my neck out on the line and try and call out what the mistake is. Before we get there, let's show you the comprehensive rules. Here we go. Here's the comprehensive rules that I know and love. The basic rulebook is a little bit too fluffy for me. No, it's not. It's a wonderful resource, and if you're starting from scratch, then the basic rulebook will answer so many questions for you. But when you have really specific questions, it's the comprehensive rulebook that you need to get to. And I like to have a bit of familiarity with the comprehensive rulebook. So I like to be able to move around it and kind of know where rules are. That's why I'm showing you section 5, all of the rules, all the 500 rules, everything beginning with 5. It's all about turn structure. And all the stuff about the combat phase is hidden away here. It's weird. So you've got a general thing about the turn structure, like a number of rules about how exactly you get through the game. A little bit about the beginning phase that's got the untap, upkeep and draw steps in. There's the untap step, there's the upkeep step, there's a draw step. Not many rules for these steps, it's fine. Then you've got a bit of a section about the main phase and what you can do in the main phase. There's a fair bit you can do in the main phase. I mean, that's when you're casting stuff, so there's a couple of rules to do with that. And then we move on to the combat phase. And this is why I feel like the combat phase rules are kind of hidden away in here, because all of this is combat phase. I'm just going to scroll through it. Combat phase, combat phase, combat phase, combat phase, combat phase. Lots more combat phase. Beginning of combat step, declare attacker step. Lots of rules about declaring attackers. Declare blocker step. Lots of rules about declaring blockers. Really loads. Then we get to the combat damage step. Then, after a load of examples about the rules, we get to the end of combat step. And then there's the ending phase. It's got the end step and the cleanup step in it. So, whistle-stop tour there of the turn structure and what rules are in there. I think it's important to know, because if you have a question about combat and you want to go and look something up, I think it's vital to be able to actually kind of point to which bit of the comprehensive rulebook you want to get to. So I'm going to come here to the combat damage step first. This is the bit I want to talk about first. It's kind of the last relevant thing that happens in the combat phase, with how combat damage is assigned and dealt. And I want you to pay particular attention to the wording, because I believe there's some judge test questions. For those of you who've never taken a judge, I'll cut away from the rules for the moment. For those of you who've never taken a judge test before, all the questions are multiple choice. Some of the questions are, here's 5 options, which of these can happen, which of these are legal things. And some of the questions are like, here's 5 options, pick the right one. Now, I always think that multiple choice questions they're a little bit misleading. Like, you want to think them as being quite easy because you don't have to write anything down. You don't have to like write an essay about what happens in the combat damage step. But when you're given a multiple choice question, here's your 5 options. You can normally go, well, this option's a joke, and this one, yeah, I can see why that's wrong. And then there's 3, or sometimes 2, that are really, really similar. And you have to really read down them and go, blah, 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 blah. Oh, huh, yeah, they said that the spell resolved and did nothing, and this one says it was countered on resolution. And whilst the 2 things would kind of have the same effect, and so if you were a player, you'd never know the difference between the 2 things happening. But as a judge, you've got to have that kind of technically accurate wording that means one of these answers is actually incorrect. So that's why I'd like you, as you read over rules, to pay attention to the terminology. And when you do explain stuff to people, try and get the words right. So here we are. Combat damage step. First, the active player announces how each attacking creature assigns its combat damage. So we're way past the part in the turn where Paolo's gone Phantasmal Image first and then the token. We know that's going to happen. We need to announce how the creature is actually going to assign its combat damage. Then the defending player announces how each blocking creature assigns its combat damage. This is almost always a no-brainer. We'll see why in a moment. This turn-based action doesn't use the stack, so assigning combat damage doesn't use the stack. I'm sure you'll know that now. A couple of years ago, that was a big surprise. It's very new stuff. There's a couple of simple things to get out of the way. First, each attacking creature and each blocking creature assigns combat damage equal to its power. Fine. Nice clarification that if you would assign 0 or less damage, you don't assign combat damage at all. This is important if you have some kind of triggered ability that triggers off of you dealing combat damage. Okay, 0 power, right, swing in with your Bird's Paradise or whatever, it's never going to trigger. If a creature's unblocked, it assigns its combat damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. No choice to be made. If I've swung in with a 5 power creature that's unblocked, you're taking 5 damage. I can't make any choices with that damage. A blocked creature assigns its combat damage to the creatures that are blocking it. It's a built-in part of the rules that things can be gang blocked. You can have multiple creatures blocking. So, there's a couple of possibilities here. There could be no creatures currently blocking it. But I hear you ask, how can there be no creatures currently blocking it if we're already talking about a blocked creature? Well, that's because, of course, there was a priority window earlier. you can declare a blocker. That makes the attacking creature blocked. But then you can kill the blocker with like a lightning bolt or something when you in one of the priority windows that you get, such that there's no creatures currently blocking it. Now here's a point of terminology that I want you to really focus on. Blocked and blocking are completely different words. To be blocked means that something was declared as a blocker in the declare blockers step. Blocking means that there's actually still a creature there that was declared earlier as a blocker. So, if there's no creatures currently blocking it, then it assigns no combat damage. There's an exception to this, of course. There's an exception to everything. If you had trample, you can trample over, and you can trample over your no blocker and deal damage anyway. If exactly one creature is blocking it, then all of its combat damage is assigned to that creature. So again, you've got no choice here. If a 5 power creature is being blocked by a 3 toughness creature, it's going to take 5. You can't choose to do anything else. I believe there's a Zubara back from Kamigawa block that cared if you dealt more damage to it than you needed to kill it, then it had some kind of trigger. There's no way around it, you can't help it. But where it gets interesting, when there's actually a choice, is if 2 or more creatures are blocking, it assigns its combat damage to those creatures according to the damage assignment order that was announced for it. So way back when they were actually declared as blockers, you pick the damage assignment order. You've got to follow that order. And yeah, this may allow the blocked creature to divide combat damage. However, it can't assign combat damage to a creature that's blocking it unless each creature before it in order is assigned lethal damage. When checking for assigned lethal damage, take into account any damage that's already on the creature. So if you've got a 5 toughness guy, and I've already lightning bolted it, so it's got 3 damage on it, it only needs 2 more to kill it, and it's involved in part of a multiple blocker scenario. It's involved in a gang block. I only need to assign 2 damage to it, and the rest can carry on to the next blocker, because 2's going to be lethal. When you're checking for this, you look at damage that's been assigned to it, but you don't care about any abilities or effects that might change the amount of damage that's actually dealt. So if you're attacking into a creature that just doesn't take damage, like a fog bank or something, then that doesn't matter. You still look at it and go, oh, you've got X toughness, I have to assign that much damage to you. That's considered lethal, even if when we look forwards into the game, when you actually play the combat out, you know whether that damage is going to turn out to have the effect of the creature going to the graveyard or not. But what we mean here when we say lethal damage is just the amount that's enough to take the marked damage up to the toughness. Back up to the rules. An amount of damage that's greater than a creature's lethal damage may be assigned to it. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would you ever want to do it? And there's one good reason that I can think of is, let's say you've got a multiple blocking scenario, and one of the creatures that's doing the blocking is Academy Rector. I didn't get a picture of him ready. Rubbish. I can't do my snazzy flip over to, here's Academy Rector. Anyway, Academy Rector, it's a creature you often don't want to kill, because when it dies it can go and fetch an enchantment up from the library, and there are some really powerful enchantments that are available in the kind of formats that Academy Rector gets played. So you might be thinking, Academy Rector's involved in a multiple block, I really don't want it to die, so I'm going to assign as much damage as I can to the first guy in the blocking order so that I don't kill the Academy Rector. That's perfectly fine. This is the main reason why the fact that damage can be split and you do have a choice about how to assign it is often missed by players, because it's so rarely relevant. It's just considered to be automatic. Yeah, I deal damage this way. This is how it's done. There's an obvious way to do it most of the time. I'm going to take you through the examples that are here, because they're good, and 2, it's a nice illustration of how the comprehensive rules actually contains more than just a comprehensive rules. It actually has examples of how some of these rules work. So here we go. There's three scenarios kind of in a family here. Oh, excuse me. Just going to have some water. Sorry about that. Three scenarios kind of in a family here. They all have an attacking Vastwood Gorger, which is just a vanilla 5/6, and it's being blocked by a 0/3 and a 1/1. So we're in a multiple block scenario. We can choose how to assign damage. With nothing else happening, and with the 0/3 first in the blocking order, Vastwood Gorger could assign 3 damage to the Guardian and 2 to the Elves, which is going to kill both of them. Could assign 4 damage to the Guardian and 1 to the Elves, or could assign 5 damage to the Guardian and 0 to the Elves and leave them alive. All these 3 things are perfectly legal things to do, and again, a practicality of taking judge tests is that you'll often be asked questions along the lines of, which of these options are legal? And you don't want to think at all about whether these things are strategically valid. What you want to know is, are they legal? And in this situation, this example, you might not be able to think of a reason why you would possibly want to leave the Llanowar Elves alive. But the fact is, it's a legal move. It is a legal move. And that's all the judge test cares about. Okay, let's tweak this scenario a bit. During declare blockers, the defending player is going to cast Giant Growth, making our Pride Guardian into a 3/6. Now, because it's first in the blocking order, Vastwood Gorger must assign all 5 damage to the Guardian because we need 6 to kill it now. Lethal damage is 6, so we can't get to the Elf. So in this manner, the Giant Growth has actually protected both the Guardian and the Llanowar Elves. And it's because of blocking order. Because blocking order is locked in, whilst you don't know how the attacking player is going to assign the damage, you know the order it's going to happen in, so there's not that much wiggle room. And you can pull off cool tricks like this. Giant Growth saving 2 of your guys. Definitely seems worth it. Yeah, it's just a shame it doesn't grow large enough to kill the Vastwood Gorger, but hey, what can you ask for? There's a spell here that doesn't work quite so well. Mending Hands is a spell that will prevent the next 4 damage that will be dealt to a creature. If Mending Hands is played on the Pride Guardian, we don't care about the fact that 4 damage is going to be prevented. When we think, what's lethal damage for the Pride Guardian, the answer is still 3, because its toughness is 3 and there's no damage previously marked on it. So the legal damage assignment options are exactly the same as the first scenario. We could split it 3 and 2, or we could go 4 and 1, or we could go 5 to the Guardian. So in 2 of those 3 scenarios, we're still going to end up killing the Llanowar Elves, but there's no way we can get the Guardian dead. Don't have enough damage to do it. And final example that's right here in the comprehensive rules, just complicates it up a little bit further. You've got an attacking Enormous Baloth, which is a 7/7, and it's going to block a 3/3 that already has 2 damage marked on it, then a Pharazôn Brigade, which is a 2/4, and then Silverback Ape, which is a 5/5. And there's also a Dirkwood Boars, which is a 4/4, that's being blocked by the same Pharazôn Brigade. So this is, again, it's a situation that doesn't often come up, but it can come up. Blockers can block, they can block multiple creatures, so they will have a damage assignment order as well. And then there's a Goblin Piker in there as well, 2/1. So amongst other possibilities, here's one possibility of what could happen in the combat phase. You could have the Baloth assign 1 damage to the Armadon. Right, why is it legal for the Baloth to assign only 1 damage to the Armadon? That's because it's a 3/3 that already has 2 damage marked on it. So when we say how much damage is required to be lethal to the Armadon, the answer is 1. We only need 1. 1 damage gets there. 1 damage to the Brigade is also okay. Now, why is it okay to deal only 1 damage to the Brigade? The brigade's a 2/4. It's next in the blocking order. It's got no damage marked on it, so 1 damage isn't considered lethal at this point. Well, the reason that 1 damage is legal for the Armadon to assign to the brigade is because we're going to have the Boars assign 3 damage to the brigade. 3 damage from the Boars and 1 from the Baloth at the same time is going to be considered lethal. You can't do your damage assignment order by looking at one creature in isolation when you have something like the Frisian Brigade here that's doing multiple blocks at the same time. You've got to take them all into account. So with 3 damage from the Boars and 1 from the Baloth, that's lethal. Brilliant. And then the Baloth goes on to deal 5 damage to the Ape. The Boars goes on to deal 1 damage to the Piker. And I'm pretty sure end result, or certainly everything that's blocking, is going to die. We don't know how the Frisian Brigade split its damage up, but that is a choice that the defending player was going to have. He will have put the what's he blocking? Oh, I've lost it already. The Baloth and the Boars into a damage assignment order himself, and then we would know which way the 2 damage was going. Of course, in this scenario, 2 damage isn't going to be enough to kill either of them outright. Or is it? Should have read through this example a bit more carefully before. It's complicated, isn't it? There's a lot going on here. Yeah, he could kill the Dirkwood Boars. If the Dirkwood Boars was first in the order, then the Brigade could deal 2, the Piker could deal 2, take down the Boars. The Baloth, is there any way to take that down? Yeah, that's being taken down anyway. The 3/3 Armadon and the 5/5 Ape. Yeah, so we have a possibility that everything could be taken out here, but only if the Frisian Brigade put its damage assignment order the right way around earlier in the combat phase. Combat, it's exciting. Who knew that without combat damage going on the stack like it did do a couple of years ago, the combat phase is still an exciting thing. Hooray! Somebody in the chat did notice all the creatures can die. Brilliant. Yes. Combat's hard. So hard, in fact, and this is how I segue neatly back into my previous example. Combat damage so hard that it can go wrong in the quarterfinals of a Pro Tour and nobody at the time would notice. Do you want to see it? Do you want to see it again? Everyone got cut off by an advert, it seemed, when I tried to play this before. So I'm going to try and play this again. I want you to watch really carefully and see if you can see the mistake. I bet you don't.
Go and get another Nexus. Go and get a backup Wolf Run.
So he puts 9 in front of
Double
the...
block Thron and triple block the Titan.
Double block Thron, triple block the Titan. Hopefully you're hearing Yelger in your surround sound home cinema as we are in our headphones.
Sure.
Remember, killing that Phantasmal image will have an additional effect on all the tokens that are involved in combat because they'll all lose a +1/+1 bonus. Should it come to that.
Good man Gary on Cover It Live in the UK, staying up late for this. Good man.
Okay.
I tell you what, St. JW, just for you, this is a one-time only offer. Yes, I will buy you a coffee when you get to work tomorrow.
Regenerates Thrown the Last Troll. Pumps.
Okay, I hope you got to actually see that time. Didn't get cut off by an advert. Apologies if you did. I'm not going to show it a third time. That's just going to get embarrassing. Here's the point where I feel it all went wrong. We had a couple of abilities played, and I don't know if I let the video play on long enough. At some point you could hear the commentator saying, "Oh yeah, he's pumped the Titan so that everyone dies." yeah, to answer the question in the chat, the Phantasmal image is currently copying the Drogskull Captain. That's the multicoloured permanent you can see on the board. So yeah, so there's 2 lords that makes all of the spirits are going to be 3/3s, and I'm pretty sure they pump each other. So, but everything on Yelga's side of the table is a 3/3. Someone in the chat, tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, yeah, the commentator says at one point he pumps the Primeval Titan so that everything dies. And the funny thing is, he didn't pump the Primeval Titan at all. He's pumped Thrun. So how do we know this is a mistake? So we didn't actually declare at all what the damage assignment order was for the 3 spirits that are gang blocking the Primeval Titan. But it doesn't matter because the 3 things are identical. And players will do this all the time. I'm not going to bother saying what the damage assignment order is here because I'm just going to assume it's obvious. They're all the same thing, so fine. So if the Primeval Titan's a 6/6, which it is naturally, it has to have gone 3 damage to the first token, 3 damage to the second token, and no damage to the last one. It hasn't got enough power to get there. This is a change to how the rules used to work before M10. Which is why I can perfectly understand this mistake being made. Previously, you could split up damage however you liked because you had an opportunity with damage on the stack to respond with stuff that was going to save your guys. If you imagine that he assigned 2 damage to each of the spirits, and then because one of the lords on the other side of the table was going to die, would drop the spirits down to 2/2s, and with them all having 2 damage on them, they'd all die. If you assumed that was the case, then you just go, yeah, fine, they're all dead, no problem. But you can't do that anymore. You can't do it. You have to go 3/3-0. Oh, of course, in the other possibility, if you because he wasn't super explicit about it, if you want to assume that the Wolf run pump the Primeval Titan, taking it to 8 power, then you can go 3 to the first token, 3 to the second token, and 2 to the last token, which, when combat damage ends up resolving, once you're all finished, the state-based actions will kick in, kill the first 2 tokens because of lethal damage, and also kill the Phantasmal image. That'll drop the remaining tokens' toughness to 2. We'll do another state-based actions check. As you all know from last week, we do multiple state-based action checks as long as stuff happens. And the second state-based action check would kill the remaining 2/2 token. So yeah, if the Primeval Titan had 8 power, it's entirely possible for it to kill all 3 things. But if the Primeval Titan had 8 power, then the Thrun only had 4, and there's no way it kills both things on its side. So yeah. If you were watching live, and again, I don't think I ran the video through long enough for you to be able to see this. If you ran through live, Paolo asked a very innocent question. He thought he got to trample over for 1 as well. We'll see why he thinks that. If you pump the Thrun, you get into 6 power and he's got trample. Now, you might think, I'm going to assign 3 damage to the Lord, because that's going to be enough to kill it. So then I only need to assign 2 damage to the remaining token, because it's only got 2 toughness, kind of. Which means I've got 1 left over, and that can trample over, and Yelga will take 1 damage. But we've fallen into the same trap of, what does lethal damage mean at the time that you assign damage? Lethal damage means just how much do I need to get up to its toughness value. I'm not going to actually look forward and simulate the game state to see whether the guy's going to die. So not lethal in the traditional sense of you're going to die from this, but lethal in the sense of how much do I need to get to the toughness. Then the only damage assignment order, again, that makes sense here is 3 and 3. You can't trample over because you don't have enough power. You could, if you wanted to, do 4 and 2. If you suspected you could do 4 and 2. I was going to say if you suspected a trick, but you can't play them at that time. If you had some reason to do that, I can't think of one. But yeah, Paolo's making the mistake of kind of playing it forward and going, only 2 damage to that will be lethal, so that I can go and trample over, when that's not true at all. Okay, I've done a heck of a lot about. Let's pop back to the comprehensive rules and just see how this phase continues. A blocking creature assigns combat damage to the creatures it's blocking, and again, in the case of the Phyrexian Brigade, where it's blocking multiple things, you will have already declared an order, and you'll have to assign it this way. Now, there's quite a lot of rule here. All of this 510.1d, from pretty much there onwards, apart from like the odd word like blocking, it's a copy and paste of this rule. Look, a blocked creature assigns its combat damage to the creatures blocking it. A blocking creature assigns combat damage to the creatures it's blocking. They're pretty much identical rules, so I'm just going to skip over there. There's nothing in there to catch you out. And once a player has assigned combat damage from each attacking or blocking creature he or she controls, then we check the total damage assignments, check that it was actually legal. And the only reason this is needed is for that reason before, where we had the Friesen Brigade with 4 toughness, and the only way we could see that it was taking lethal damage was by taking into account the damage assignment from both of the things it was blocking, both the Baloth and the Boars. So now that we know it's legal, then assignment's been finished, so we go and deal the damage. There's no gap in between assignment and dealing, nothing goes on the stack, nothing happens at this point, no player's got the chance to cast spells or activate abilities, and they've even kindly gone out, in case you're reading this for the first time, this is a change from previous rules. I'm glad they don't have that all over the comprehensive rules, to be honest, because there are changes everywhere. Everything changes with these. But specifically it was the N10 changes that brought this in. And finally we have a couple of things here that just remind us that any abilities that triggered on damage being dealt go on the stack, the active player gets priority, and as we know from last week, what happens just before a player gets priority? If you would receive priority, then instead I'm sure you're all screaming, you do a state-based action check because you watched my stream last week. You know the stuff. You're amazing. Players may cast spells and activate abilities, and then there's just a kind of a note at the bottom that says, oh, by the way, there's this thing called First Strike that actually means you go through this whole damage assignment and dealing thing twice over. Sure. I've got an example question that came in from Brett Wright. So I'm going to go over that one. I can't believe I've spoken for as long as I have purely about combat damage. So I'm not going to get on to attacking and blocking restrictions like I wanted to. Part 2, we'll save that for part 2. I said there'd be a part 2 if I needed it, and it turns out I need it. Almost like forward planning or something. Quick check the chat window because it's scrolling by madly. JQL girl. Is that Charlotte? Can you tell me if you're Charlotte? I saw you earlier just go, yeah, you're using my rulebook. That was your rulebook. And, wow. And you did rules.wizards.com. I applause to you. Good stuff. Yes, it's absolutely right. State-based actions are always checked before a player receives priority. They didn't bother reminding us in the combat damage rules because they knew we already knew that. They knew it. So here's a question that came in from Brett Wright. So we have a Grizzly Bears. Grizzly Bears is a vanilla 2/2. You don't need to look at that one for very long. But here's an interesting card. It's a card that is Dark Ascension, isn't it? Yeah, Fateful Hours, Dark Ascension. So brand new, hot off the press, Gavony Ironwright. 3 mana for a 1/4 isn't totally exciting, but as long as you have 5 or less life, other creatures you control get +1/+4. So, let's see how this has a nice, relevant application to our combat damage rules that we just learned. Let's see if I can do this thing. I wanted to do this. See, Silent Arbiter, mirror image. I have the mirror image. Silent Arbiter is a card I was going to talk about. I have to bring that in another time. See, I prepared so much. I love you guys so much. I did all this for you. Let's swap that out for Gavony Ironwright, because that's the card. Yeah, it's the card. That's the card I'm talking about. You probably can't read it there now, but you had the big view, so it's good enough. So, the question that Brett Wright sent in was, let's assume that one player's got a Gavony Ironwright and is at 6 life. And they're being attacked by 2 Grizzly Bears. Does that work? Does that work? Do I need to get the exact example up again? Other creatures you control get +1/+4. Huh. Oh, rubbish. I can remember the essence of the example and not the exact stuff. Terrible behaviour. So you've got a Gavony Ironwright. The question boiled down to, I'm at 6 life, so currently the Fateful Hour ability isn't doing anything. And we're going to have some creatures that take some damage in combat. So it's something blocked, and I'm going to take some damage at the same time. And the damage is going to drop me to below 6 life. I'm going to go down to 5. Charlotte's helpfully prodding me by saying a creature with first strike and a bear. Sure. No, I don't want first strike to play into this. I feel like first strike might be a bit of a red herring here. What I want to say is that the result of the damage is going to be that I'm going to take 2 damage. You don't need to apologise, Charlotte. I love you. Don't worry. It's Valentine's Day. I'm allowed to say that. The result of the damage is I'm on 6 life and I want to be taking 2 damage, and at the same time some of my guys are taking damage, which is going to be it's going to be lethal to them. They're going to take 2 damage and they're on 2 toughness, so they're grizzly bears and so on. What's going to happen? And I stall completely whilst I forget what words I'm saying. And I cut back to the rules where I say, yeah, active player gets priority. And yeah, okay. I've got the situation clear in my head now. 2 bears on the attack, and I'm blocking with the Gavany guy and another bear. So 1 attacking bear is being blocked by a bear. So 2-2 on 2-2. Probably both guys are going to die. And 1 bear is swinging into my 1-4 with the Fateful Hour ability, and a 3rd bear is attacking me. So the result of the damage, when after all damage is assigned, 2 damage is being assigned to me from the unblocked bear, 2 damage is being assigned to a grizzly bear, and 2 damage is being assigned to the oh, it's gone. Where's he gone? It's there. The Gavany Ironright. 2 damage to everyone. When we go to resolve the damage, what happens? Well, the damage goes like this. The 2 damage that's assigned to me gets dealt, and my life total drops. I'm on 4 life. The 2 damage that's assigned to the Ironright gets marked on it. So it's the result of dealing damage to a creature is that damage gets marked on it. So it's almost like we get a little pen out and go, 2 damage. There you go, you got 2. And we do the same to the grizzly bears. So the grizzly bears gets 2 damage marked on it. But nothing happens. You know this. You know this from last week. Nothing happens purely because you marked damage on a creature. Like, well, hey, no one cares until we get to 510.4, the active player gets priority, and immediately before priority, we have the state-based action check. State-based action check goes, hey guys, has anyone around here actually taken lethal damage? Do I need to be escorting any of you to the graveyard via destruction? And at that point, the Gavany Ironright says, nope, I'm fine, I've got 2 damage marked on me, I've got 4 toughness, I'm all good. And the other grizzly bears goes, yep, I've got 2 damage marked on me, and my toughness is 6. It's 6 because the Fateful Hour has kicked in early enough to save me. And there you go. That's the essence of the example I was trying to get. I'm sorry that I misspoke on the words as I was trying to get them out. I hope you'll forgive me. So, I'm done. I've gone through everything I want to go through for combat damage now. I need to stop before my head explodes, because that can happen if you talk about magic for too long. Thankfully, it's not happened to any of you guys yet, so that's good. I'm going to jabber on a bit just in case any questions come in on the chat room. If you have a question, chuck it up there. You've got the next 60 seconds or so to get it in, and we'll see what happens. Untrue. Untrue. What's untrue? Have I made a mistake? While Charlotte tells me whether there's a mistake or not, I will cut to this rather amusing picture of me that I made back in my old house with the mirrored image stuff. To remind you that I want to be talking about Two-Headed Giant next week. Two-Headed Giant, there he goes. Two-Headed Giant, it's going to be next week. There will be a part 2 to this combat, to the combat phase stream that I'm doing today, so that I can get to assign attacking restrictions and blocking restrictions. I'm told the mistake I made is saying that talking about magic too much will make your head explode. It really doesn't. Otherwise, I don't think I would even dare do this stream on a weekly basis. So, yes. Charlotte says her head would have exploded several times this past weekend. And yet you're still here listening about more magic. It's just fantastic. Love it. Okay, so next week, Two-Headed Giant. Week after, I talk about GP Madrid. After that, I respond to questions that you've sent in from a practice test that you've taken. And let me be totally explicit here again. Don't send me questions from your practice test. Don't do that. Don't ever send practice test questions out to other people. What I want you to do is look at the explanations, find the rule that tripped you up, and send me the rule number. All I want is the rule number that you didn't understand the most, or that you understood the least, from your practice test. Send it to me on Twitter. It's Paul Smithinator, PaulSmithEnator. Send it to me by private message on the UK Judge Forums if you're on the UK Judge Forums. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat other than stuff about banding, which I'm not going to answer yet. Probably ever. Maybe if I stream for long enough that I get to Combat Damage Part 47, then I'll talk about banding. Until then, I think it's time to sign off. So, thank you very much for listening. This has been episode 2, all about the combat phase. If you're tuning in for the first time, go back and watch the State-Based Actions episode from last week. You've been a fantastic audience. I love you all. Enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day, however many hours of it you have left, wherever you are in the world. And see you next week. Thank you very much.